Hey guys, so I'm back to doing monthly reading wrap-ups. So I'm going to wrap up the month of September. And in total, I read 10 books, 2 of which were audiobooks. So I'm getting back to my format of doing like my least favorite to my favorite. So I have 2 3-star reads at the bottom of this list, and unfortunately they were both my audio reads. And I have been in such an audiobook slump lately. I don't know what it is, but I have just not been enjoying any of the audiobooks that I've been reading recently. So that's been a little frustrating. But anyways, let me get into these 2 reads. Both of these have so many good reviews for them and people love them, but for some reason I just was not into either of them. At the bottom of the list, they're kind of like tied for average reads for me, is The People We Keep. So this is a story about this young girl. It's kind of like a coming of age story. She's not really wanted by anyone in her life, and so she takes out on the road and tries to make a life for herself. And she's a musician, so she just kind of travels to places. It's just about her life, her relationships. This book felt like it had a few phases through it, and you kind of spend some time in like these certain phases of her life, and it was just okay, like, but I didn't really like a lot of the decisions that she made, and it just wasn't relatable to me, and overall I just like wasn't a big fan of it. I found myself getting a little bit bored. So my next 3-star read audio was Once There Were Wolves. This one I thought I was going to love because I've heard many people gush about this book. It's like their favorite book of the year, and I felt like I read a different book from everybody else, so that was very disappointing. This is about a woman whose life is working with wolves, and she moves to this town in Scotland, reacclimate a pack of wolves to help the ecosystem because it's not doing so well, and people are obviously against it. Like the townspeople like hate the idea of these wolves living in their forests, and it's just her strife with the people in the town. But then there's also a romance, and I don't know, like I didn't like it. I was just bored. I didn't know what the point of the story was going to be, and then I just ended up not caring what happened at all. So fortunately, those 2 are on the bottom of my list. So now getting into my 4-star section. I have a lot of books in this section to talk about, so let's get into it. I have What He Never Knew by Candy Steiner. This is the 3rd book in the series. I finished or started in August, so I'm not really going to share too much about this because it is the 3rd book in a series. So anyways, if you are interested in that series, maybe you watch the other wrap-up to hear what those are about, but I can't really share about this book. Then I read The Neighbor's Secret. I gave that one 4 stars. This one, it was a book of the month selection, and I was able to get it through NetGalley, so thank you NetGalley. I was happy to be able to read this one, and this one felt so much like Desperate Housewives to me. You're following these 3 women who live in the same neighborhood, and they all have like something not quite right in their lives going on. One has a daughter who's just going through something. One has a son who is on the train to becoming a sociopath. I think it's called conduct disorder, but her son is, maybe he's like 8 or he's a young teenager, and he struggles with empathy, and he injures people and things and has no remorse for it. So it's just her whole struggle with her son. And the other woman in the neighborhood is kind of a shut-in, and she's been like a self-imposed shut-in for years and years now, and no one really knows exactly why. She has a lot of secrets too. So it's a really fun book if you like Desperate Housewives. There's a lot of drama, a lot of secrets. It was just a really fun time. Then I read The Off Limits Rule by Sarah Adams. This is my 2nd book by her, and I give this one 4 stars. I did like this one more than The Match, and I'm excited to read more Sarah Adams. But this one is about this single mom who moves back to her hometown of Nashville, and it's a romance with her and her brother's best friend. And the brother's best friend is off limits because he's kind of portrayed himself as this ladies' man, and her brother hates the idea of her being with a guy like that, obviously. But it's their romance. I thought it was funny. Like, I remember laughing out loud reading this, and it was a good, like, feel-good rom-com. She's definitely a good author for that. I have my first thriller to talk about, and that's An Unwanted Guest. So this one is perfect for a cold winter snowy day because this takes place in the winter during a blizzard with these strangers who go to this this bed and breakfast in like upstate New York. It's very secluded, and they end up kind of getting locked in, and then a murder happens, and there's only this small group of strangers there, so you know it has to be one of them. Who is it? You get all of the perspectives from all of the strangers, and even like the hotel owner and then his son who work at this bed and breakfast. So lots of different perspectives. I really didn't know what to expect with it, but I thought it was really good. I love the ending. Just overall super good for just sitting in front of like a cozy fireplace drinking hot chocolate. I mean, this is the book for that. So now getting into my 4.5-star reads. It should come as no surprise that Portrait of a Scotsman by E.B. Dunmore is on this list. This was an add-on for the month of August, and I was so excited. I really would have been surprised if it wasn't an add-on for book of the month, but this is the third book in a historical romance series. The series is called The League of Extraordinary Women. So I have read and absolutely loved the other 2 books in the series. These are all these friends, these young ladies who are in this women's rights movement, and it's their individual romances. So in this one, we're following Hattie Greenfield, who is an artist. I don't want to actually spoil what happens because I didn't know like the romance trope that was going to play out in this, and I was so happy when it happened. So you just have to experience it for yourself. But it's her in a romance with this like, what's his name, like this scoundrel of society. He is really not well respected by anyone in these social circles because he has a lot of money and he's accumulated a lot of wealth by calling in debts for these high lords when they really can't pay them, and he really just destroys lives basically. So he's this really dark and broody character, and I loved them together. Like I loved it. This book also takes you to Scotland. I loved that we got to travel there in this book and get out of London, because the first 2 books were set more like in London. You don't have to read these books in order because each one follows a different lady, but I mean, I think you should read the whole series because I love all of these books. And this one, only problem with it was the ending. There were just things that happened in the ending that I was like, why did that have to happen? But overall, I still really enjoyed this book. My next 4.5-star read is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alex Feeney. This one just came out. I heard it's going to be on Netflix. I forget if it's a movie or a TV show. Either way, this one I really liked. It's another snowed in thriller, except this time instead of it being a group of strangers going to a hotel like in the other book I talked about, this is about a married couple who is really at a crossroads in their relationship. Are they going to stay together? Are they going to get divorced? And they go to this secluded chapel. It was converted into like a bed and breakfast, and they're just going to have this weekend to themselves, and it's going to be just great. But there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of secrets this couple's hiding from each other, and this book follows both perspectives, which I really liked. And then there's also an element of these letters that the wife has written to her husband every single year at every anniversary of their marriage, and so you're kind of learning more about their marriage through these letters as well. Overall, I think this was so gripping. I thought it was such a well done story. It definitely felt very spooky at times, and I really liked this. So 4.5 stars. I would definitely recommend this thriller, and this is another one that you want to read when it's cold or gloomy outside and you have a nice hot beverage. Perfect for winter, not so perfect for Florida, but that's fine because I just pretend I don't live here most of the time. I have 2 5-star reads, which is just wonderful. So the first 5-star read is In 5 Years. I have wanted to read this book probably for like a couple years now. It's not a long book. I pretty much read this all in one day. I easily could have read it all in one sitting. I thought this book was just fantastic. It's not a romance, it's a contemporary fiction. There is a romantic element to it, but it is not a romance. I will keep saying that because it is like put on all these romance categories, and I just don't really think that's the vibe of this story. So this is about a young woman. She's very career driven. She loves her life. She's very passionate about the work that she does. She loves working the long hours. She is engaged to this man who kind of fits the same mold with her life. He's also very career driven, but they do love each other. And she gets this like dream of herself in 5 years from when she's having the dream, and she's not with her fiance, she's with someone else, and she has this overwhelming feeling of like safety, security, love. She feels like she's living in this whole different life in this 5-year scenario. So then the book takes you to 4.5 years before this dream is supposed to come true, and we see the guy from her dream and her, and they meet, and you get to just see what happens in those span a few months while it kind of builds up to the day of her dream. And there is a wonderful female friendship represented in this book. Her and her best friend have been close through their whole entire lives, and you get to explore that as well. So this book was just really good. I was completely hooked on it. Now my favorite book of the month. This book has ruined me. Like, I hate that I read this because I'm still in a reading slump because of this book. And that's It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. So I thought I was going to like this book, okay, because it sounds cute. I'd never read a Tessa Bailey book before, but I was going away and I was going to be by a pool, and I thought this just seems like the perfect book to read by a pool. So I got it. There was a whole deal of me not being able to get a copy of this book because of TikTok, and like was sold out in all of the Barnes and Nobles in my area until finally they restocked and I was able to get it. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I didn't say it yet, but this book is definitely like in my favorite book of the year category. I think it's top 3. Like, that's how strongly I feel about this romance. And I had like a romance in my top 3. It was People We Meet on Vacation. I'm sorry, but this book has just entered that space. So Tessa Bailey wrote this character of Piper based off of, is it her name, Alexis in Schitt's Creek, which I don't watch Schitt's Creek, but I obviously like know who that character is. So Piper is this social media influencer. She gets everything she wants in life. She lives in LA. She has no job. Like, she has so much money. Like, her job is just to like be beautiful and hang out with all the perfect people, and that's her life. She does something that is not very good, and so her stepfather says, okay, well, you're gonna go spend the summer in your hometown. When she was very young, she moved away from her hometown because her father passed away and her mother just couldn't deal with that anymore, so she moved to LA and found her stepfather, and they lived happily ever after. But she's never been back since she was a small girl, and so she goes to this small fishing town, and it is the opposite of the lifestyle that she's used to because, of course, she's used to these parties and this glamour, and it is very low-key, just a very humble little town. And in walks in Brendan, who is a captain of a fishing boat, and they have a very dangerous job. I mean, her father died working, and they're very well respected, like these fishermen in this community. They do a lot for the town, and they have like a very important job. And so it's their romance, and let me tell you, this book, I'm obsessed with it. Like, honestly, I have not really been able to pick up a book and enjoy it thoroughly since finishing this book, and it's kind of a problem. Like, all I want to do is read this again, like right now. Like, I just want to start a whole reread because I don't know, it worked so well for me. I think what was so good about this was, first of all, it was really funny. I mean, I laughed a lot when I was reading this book. Second of all, it was so super sweet and endearing. I posted on my story, was it chapter 15 or 16 or something? There's this one chapter, and I felt like I was smiling like an idiot like the whole time I was reading this chapter. Like, I was just like, this is adorable. I love Brendan. He is so sweet. And like Piper, her character growth, because it's not just a romance. She's discovering her past, and she's finding how to be a different person other than someone who just is for their looks and is loved for like their popularity, basically. So this book it's in my heart. Like, it genuinely is in my heart. I love this book. So okay, I'm gonna end this video on a high. Let me know, of course, if you've read any of these. But anyway, I would definitely love to chat with you if you've read any of these books. But thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.